Cheesh hat see yakeo satinia yaki Kaxwaan Éesh katangi dat yejitnia that Yachana ye chojian yata Kaxwaan Éesh katangi adat yejitni aka away suffixes we bases akaye yeti wasa at kakwani Qat adasa yituasaku Arjiwa so we yuchatank Lingít Glossika kadudáal'i yaki sentences a kayeti ka verb dictionary to a kakayaki at Gilchish kadasa yituasaku adat kayuzi. Great to see everybody. We'll keep working on Kaxwaan Éesh. That's what we were talking about when we first started, or at least by the time I got here. And so maybe we'll start with that in this shada yukdaat verb. And I'll try it. Sometimes like this takes a little bit of digging around. And when you're listening to a speaker who's really in a flow, sometimes this stuff can be very difficult to hear. Shada is sort of like around one's own mouth. So it's a really interesting construction because we know but if I said if someone said that to me, I would think lips. So khada is also lips. But when you say shada, it does literally mean one's own lips or around one's mouth. But then there's usually some verb that follows, and then you get a couple of things in there. So let's see if I can find. I'll go and look for some examples. So if we look at the upcoming someday Raven book, and we're looking for, I'm just going to look for khada and see what comes up here. I'll have to get up when the lights go out on me. So here we have khada yachtayit. So we have here a hortative form of the verb to warm something up. And here we've got, so it would be warmed up around the edges. Well, this is not a hortative, but the purposive, what we've been talking about. Shash adat tushte. In this case, it sure looks like, oh yeah, they did not pay attention to what that person was saying. So this could be, if we said, that would mean we are not paying attention to what you're saying, which would be a strange thing to say to someone. But you say it and I'll just kick you out of the Zoom meeting. Oh, sorry, there go the lights. I guess I better not, sorry. I should just bring my dog, make her run around. Okay. Let's try and find another example. So here we've got that place where it ran aground. There's a bunch of stuff going on in this sentence. This is the Susie James sentence, which means it's probably going to be a champion sentence. And then here's another one. So in this case, we see the tuti. Again, in this case, this is an object pronoun. So we're not paying attention to you. So we're seeing it here pop up. Let me see what else this shows up in, this khada. So usually if I run into stuff like this, I got a whole bunch of stuff on my computer. And so I can just do a search for the computer. There's a little magnifying glass up there. and khada comes up. Another place where it does come up is in the Swanton texts that Zeus put together. So I can enter it in here and see what comes up. So here we have dukhada wushetet. Let's see, this is line 76. Is that right? Oh no, 77. Around his mouth was fatty. So here we see dukhada wushetet. And then a breakdown of that. And then we can go into the dictionary as well and see what we get for qadda, just to sort of start piecing this together. It is one of these things that changes. Well, we see it in kadudáal'i, which is face whiskers. For people, it's usually a mustache. For animals, it's whiskers, like sea lion whiskers or dog whiskers. Qadda, about, concerning someone's words or speech. It's probably gonna be about the same. Around the surface of it. I guess I don't have a definition of that one. So concerning something, ʼéidáx is a word for northern peoples, bones around the mouth. So, and then qadda is lips, right? Or the area around the mouth. So just sort of like looking at that part, then that gets us to the verb. And let's see. I'm pretty sure I found this one in here. And we're gonna, there's a couple of things to note with the Lear verbs. One is it's amazing, it's fantastic. This section with the A's is a little bit not as flushed out as the other sections. So when we go down and look for the ot section, we get down here and there is so much stuff here. So we can kind of do a bit of a look through here and see what we could find. Oh, I love feedback. So we see like to go somewhere. And so we're looking for qadda yukda'at. Something else to note with this verb is the U and the K are combining to say this thing happens on a regular basis, right? So it's one of these repetitive imperfectives. So we're looking for something that has something like that with a D classifier, right? So ka, you would expect to be qadda kadudáal'i is what I would expect it to be in a perfective. So we have this one to carry something one at a time or in an orderly fashion, but that's an L classifier, right? So it's like luggage, moving luggage around. And we can sort of start scrolling through juda'at, to attack. With an S, well, here we have khanas. And the handwriting gets a little bit hard to read sometimes. Yatla'at quyawtla'ati. Hin quyawtla'ati is a baptizer.
You passed a kadudáal'i.
What's that?
You passed kadudáal'i.
Oh, where's it at? Let's see.
Up a little bit.
Oh, achas kadudáal'i. There it is. Sheesh. So they left there one by one. So then that says, well, then this would probably be the verb for things to be moving in kind of a one by one or orderly fashion. But then you get yukda'at. It keeps going that way. Qadda yukda'at. It's moving in an orderly fashion around one's mouth. So there are some of these things where it's like the combination of them is one thing, and then the meaning is another. And that's what I would sort of categorize this one as. And goodness cheese, folks, for organizing study times in the chat. Someday I'll figure out how to communicate this a little bit more widely so that we can just, or at least once, and we could just set a few times and maybe kind of share the responsibility of being the host, right? So I like to think of it as you're the one who just keeps the fire going. Like I'm here and people could come, and then what we can do is we can promote these when we set a series of times, and I think sharing that responsibility helps. We are gonna hire a Lingít tutor who's gonna help with some of this stuff. But then that Zoom link is always open too. So it's sort of like once we get sort of a set schedule of volunteers and then our student worker, we can promote it with the beginning class and the intermediate class, just that we're just building this community of learners. I think using it and studying it really is an incredible thing. And then we'll start talking. I think the border is going to be open both directions and by November. So that's pretty exciting. So we can start talking about gatherings safely, but you know, it would be really nice if we could start figuring out some stuff. There is talk of, I think the second week of December, having an immersion down here in Juneau. So I'll certainly let you folks know once that gets, okay. Noé is banished from Canada until 2023. But so yeah, I guess we'll just sit right on the border. And I don't, we'll figure it out. Maybe build a little house right there. And we'll just, a house with a invisible line down the middle. And just stand on either
The
side.
party right on the border, right?
There you go. Let's take it back.
Right there. Shouldn't be any borders on stolen land anyway.
Yeah, well, okay. So should we go back and you want to start listening to more Kaxwaan Éesh and going through it? Now that we're here.
What, how would you translate that then?
Oh.
ʼéidáx.
And I can't quite remember how I found it, but I also talked to him about it. It's to work on food. So it's really putting up food. And I think there is another way to say that, which is, anybody remember that one? I'll go find it. It's, it ends with ga, is that ga in there?
Kaustaga, put up food.
Yeah, that's it, Kaxwaan Éesh. Where'd my window? Oh, it's right here. So here is another way to say it. Whereas I think the difference would be like, this is more specifically to be putting it up for storage. So like, especially like the canning part, the drying part, all of that. And I think the is just generally like sort of working on foods. I think they're very similar concepts. It could be even like doing the same thing. But for me, I think of this verb. So you see, yande ya akanashkein or yan akaushaka, yan kaushaka. For me, I'm thinking more of like jars and stuff like that, and just sort of really the storage part. And I think the other one as the act of cutting it up and smoking it and a little bit more of sort of that part. But they could be just two different ways to say the same thing. And he's the only one I've heard say that. There is another one. Is it in the Raven book? I'll have to find it. But it had something really similar. I'll try and find it some other time.
I found one
Ah,
in Kakachkuk, line 370. ʼéidáx aku atki nuch ye. Where
Oh.
people camp, they would put up their food.
What line is this?
369 and 370 kakachkuk ka atchai adayu aku atki nuch ye. Where people camp, they would put up their food.
Okay, tell me the line one more time.
369 and 370.
Yeah. So here you say, yeah, you are ye couldn't teach. So here, what's another way we might see this verb?
Ye-
Oh, go ahead.
Ayayati.
Yep, ayayati, right? So ayayati, there's a couple of shifts that go on here as it goes into the habitual form. So that means it's going to have not, just like ye na teach, Lingít, ye na teach, right? So here there's an object. So you could say ye na teach. I'm always like that. Or you could say ye na teach. I always stay there. Ye couldn't teach. People are like that, or people are that way, or people be. But here you have you there, way over there. Ye couldn't teach. Yeah. So the and the yeah are the bookmarks for the place where this happens. There's this other little rule here when you say the something verb. It's either going to be verb yeah or verby yeah. So it gets an attributive suffix, which in this case would be just a low-toned letter I. It's always low tone. If there's a vowel in the classifier. So in this case, the classifier is 0, so it's just couldn't teach. If this was wugudi, yeah. In that case, you would have the I, wugudi. So that's when you put the suffix on there. This is 0 because it's habitual.
I'm sorry, can you please say that one more time when you would put the suffix on?
Yep. If there is a vowel in the classifier, then you will add the attributive suffix. So if this was ye, kuwati, yeah. So it would get that because kuwati has the ya classifier, or the place where people let the dogs outside. Gande, Kate, Wudutsukudiye. That would be the place where people let the dogs out. And then we have ka'atai. So here, fourth person object, fourth person possessive, the possessed form of atcha, ada yu aku atkinuchya, the place where people work on the food. I do think it's a motion verb. And I also think it's doing that thing where the fourth person in some motion verbs is It's just a strange thing. It doesn't line up with all the other stuff. It's one of those. It's almost like you got these rules, and the rules, by learning the rules, you've been setting up all these little bowling pins, and then just this rule breaker comes and smashes all those bowling pins. But that's just one of them. So, like, for example, you could say, you akutkiye, the place where people, or you say, akutkiye, the place where people walk, or something like that. Or it should have you, anyways. But it is the same verb. It is the same verb. So we see shada in front of it, and I think working on their own foods. Maybe slight meaning difference there. Definitely the same verb that's being used in these instances. Good job. You did a great job finding other examples of this. Okay, where's my phone? Oh. Give me a moment here. Yeah. Okay. If I could just push this. Okay. So let's go back to here. Let's see. One second. So this is where we left off. Let's see. Try sharing the sound. And that gets us to the next one. So y'all hearing the same verb? So a couple of things, if you have you on one side and the K at the end, that should be n conjugation. Those are the ones that do that.
What does the na conjugation tell us for this phrase?
In this case, it doesn't really show us that much. It's just something to sort of put in the register in case you needed to use a command form, which I would expect it to be in this case, shkada kana, well, kanayat, probably for command of plurals, or kanayat should be long. So I'd have this as working on food. Okay. How would you folks translate this one?
The person who is lazy or something like that.
Might be something else. Punctuation, you sort of take a guess and keep going, then come back, maybe adjust it in terms of where you think there's a comma and where you think there's other things. When you come back and line this up into some sort of text, if you were to make a text out of it, you make decisions on when it seems like they're pausing a little more, you might do an extra line. Any questions are rare. So this also reveals a pattern, right? And I do hear him say "dao ka sa utzika," or utzika. I would expect him to be able to go, or expect us to be able to say "dao ka sa utzika." But I think that's one where the substitution seems to be optional. And so, this could perhaps, well, it shows us some other things too, like whichever noun is verb. So we get the whichever, then we get the noun inserted, the sa after. And so this, other verbs like dak, sa, which apple did you buy? Which, I don't know why I would say that. But I could say which house is yours? Which house did you come out of? Did you come from? So, we can, just in terms of how that structure kind of works, seeing that the dak, noun, sa, verb.
Dakokase utzika awak kwasach. Dakokase utzika awak kwasach. Dakokase utzika awak kwasach.
Well, yeah, the same thing, and then they will starve. Kugwa, yeah.
So yeah, this is another one where you'd probably have kukka if there was nothing in front of that verb, but I think that aweh pushes the kukwa or kukka to kukwa.
Dakokase utzika awak kwasach.
So
I have a
Good.
question about the dak versus dak, because I have before this summer actually I got to work with Pocket Cloud a little bit, and I said I was teaching kids the phrase dak knock sa isiti, and she was insistent that it has to always be dak So I don't know. I guess just have a question about that.
yeah, that's a good question. That certainly could be. And that could be a preference thing. Let's see. I'll try and see if I got any examples. There's hiti. Yeah, maybe it does need to be there. Sa. And I'll show you folks where I'm finding this.
I sort of think it's because the is like, which one? And so you're asking people, which of this set of things is it? Does that make sense?
Yeah. So here, like going through, we see for whatever wind. So this is Catherine Mills. So then we see a substitution here, whichever river. It could be one of these things too, where the substitution is optional, but it's becoming less common, which I think is something that does happen with Lingít, where like a long time ago, it used to be this way, but now it's sort of getting frozen into this other thing, which is very common, I think, for languages that just aren't spoken on a day-to-day basis. But it could also be a personal preference thing, and it could be one of these regional things, like I'm from a place that never substitutes the but it's also not been fully analyzed like that as well. And then we see here later, same speaker, right, where she doesn't substitute later. Let's see if we find another one.
That one seemed though like whatever river could be one of multiple, whereas dak'a would be one of two. Yeah, Kwa.
It could be, yeah. Here's dak'asa with nothing named, right? Sa also. Here we have hiti awedishlich. So this is from Charlie Joseph. Which houses do people build? Maybe. See if I can find other
Do you have a hairbrush?
examples. Oh,
Do you have a hairbrush?
let's see. Yeah, good question. So for now, I guess I would say it seems to be something that can be substituted, but more commonly probably left as is.
Yeah, I was just like, okay, Kaxwaan.
Yeah, and sometimes you just go, like, you know, I've been told some things as well, where some speakers were like, there is no tone in that word, none. It's like, okay, I'll take it out. And then later they say, oh yeah, there's tone in that word. So, you know, sometimes some speakers also get kind of like, there's these things that do become sticking points sometimes. And then you just go with it. And there are some speakers too, where when they come around, there's certain things that we adjust. We say, okay, we don't do that when they're around. And some of it is like, you know, dealing with the kids and stuff. There can't be any fart jokes when some people come around. So, okay, back to our translation.
It's like those who are lazy will starve.
Sheesh.
You cake nutstakka. You cake nutstakka. You cake nutstakka. You cake nutstakka. Nutstakka. You cake nutstakka.
That's
You cake nutstakka. You cake nutstakka.
what I hear. You away, ya cake nooch, klapka.
Can you slow it down? I missed I got the yakshe, but missed the nooch totally.
You cake nutstakka.
He's very, you know, he was fairly fast, and he would have these little, just kind of breath moments, I guess, where it gets a little hard to hear.
You cake nutstakka.
Yeah. And what do we think about this one?
It's like, I don't want to just translate all of them, but it's something like, that's what they always say, the old ones, or something. I don't know how to translate that last part, but
Yeah, right. So chaguka, and a lot of times you hear taguka. I don't hear the tagu, I hear taguka. You could translate that as the forever people. You could translate that as the ancient people. Generally, ch'ak is long ago, there's still collective memory, and tlaku is way back, like we know what happened, but there's no specific memories of the thing. Okay.
Awet tai go to high ʼéidáx. Awet tai go to high ʼéidáx. Awet tai go to high ʼéidáx.
I'm gonna write beginning and the end. Oh, time.
So fast.
Oh.
I hit away.
Tai go to high ʼéidáx.
No.
Go to high.
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
Oh.
This is probably how I would write it, but then I would have questions about it as well. So we'll listen to it one more time.
Awet tai go to high ʻéidáx. Awet tai go to high ʻéidáx.
I don't know why the ga would be there. That's my only concern.
Is there any way that could be that self-benefactive? Or does that make it plus D, so it wouldn't make any sense?
I found this on the web. That's a really good, so you could have, so if you said, I dug stuff up in the garden for myself. So in that case, I would expect tai gauch deha. I dug up things for myself. So there's this ga for the self. That could be for the self. Then you would have a perfective. Then you would have di, but then the fourth person would shift that back to a zero. So I would agree with you. So that would mean people dug things up for themselves.
It
Now,
sounds like Nechlator has written that ʼéidáx, he seems to be saying ʼéidáx away.
yes, it is. I missed that T. So now we've got it. Translators. And whenever you have a we, you're going to get a feel, you're going to come up with your like, so it is, and then sometimes you just ignore it.
I'm not sure. I think it's something like we grew gardens because of that. I don't know though.
Okay. Well, there are a couple things. One,
Something about a garden, and the haw is like to grow or to dig maybe.
well, it could be to garden. When you put tie in front of it, it's probably digging up the garden. You might expect a K in front of it to really get to digging it up. So it could be gardening in the garden. However, there's a couple things. The classifier went back to 0, and there is a perfective marker. So I would say this has really become a bit of a noun. I would probably say yeah, I like that. Because then ʼéidáx is after it. So as far as really sequencing, you're sort of saying like this thing, and then they did this thing. So it's really like you untied the boat and then you push the boat out. It really has to do with an order of things. Sort of like going back to aqa away, ʼéidáx away, ʼéidáx away, really sort of figuring out how those things kind of work. Okay.
I'm just wondering if the ka is a separate word.
Could be.
I don't know. Yeah.
Our Thai kadudáal'i ʼéidáx.
So what would it be like that?
Well, I was thinking more GAA and then the W with the verb, like
Our Thai kadudáal'i ʼéidáx.
but I don't know if that makes any sense.
Our Thai kadudáal'i ʼéidáx.
I like that, but it does sound short. And I would kind of expect it to be Thai ka kadudáal'i ʼéidáx. And then in that case, it would be dig, and then it would be going for the garden. So usually this ka would sort of be going into it, like I maybe to say like kunz kadudáal'i, digging for potatoes. That would certainly make sense. And so, yeah, and with some of like this is really fun stuff too, because it's really like, and these speakers, they just keep teaching us and teaching us and teaching us.
Kadudáal'i. 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 Kadudáal'i.
People would move.
Kadudáal'i. Kadudáal'i.
Okay, a shude kunalkats. I hear the in there.
Kadudáal'i.
And I know Cheat Wu and I were having this conversation about shu. What on earth is shu? So it is the end of something, right? That's the end of the road. But like, let's kind of mess around a little bit here with this one. Let me find one of these things. 1 second. Okay. We're going to take a look at this other slideshow too. But while we're here, I'm going to duplicate this slide and I'm going to say shu. So this is the end. And what we're going to do is we're going to put some, you can't really put a CH on it. I don't know about a ka. Let's go find, I know you can do shoot. So this would be at the end of it, right? So you could do that one. Let's see, you could have shoe day towards the end of it. And you can have shu, but that is half of it. If that's the same one, which it seems like it to me, but maybe it isn't. You can have shu. And you can have shu.
So Keishi in a prayer, she's talking, so she goes hat chai kachaya atwutuaat iyach, and she's talking like to grandmother or to Yatzinet, and then she says ha shuda yagagu, and she translates that as walk around us.
Oh, hashuda. Okay, gonna cheesh. There's also a Raven story where there's several different versions of Raven in the Box of Daylight. And some of the things I think sometimes get left out of that is he flew down there to the Nas and he's sitting there and probably in a tree watching these people fishing at night, and they're fishing for driftwood. And in one version, he says, Ach eit I woo, gwashi kan quakuts, gwashi ka ke an quakuts. Send me something to eat, send me something to eat. I might break the daylight on you. In another version, he says, Ach shude, gwashi ka ke an quakuts. But that one, when we were translating that, they translated Ach Shude as come and get me. And then there's shoot out duck, which okay, so you're gonna bring something, and maybe that out duck verb is to build a fire, but it has something to do with maybe the end of the stick or something like that. Other shu things. I just took my shoe off to scratch my foot.
Zeus mentioned shuada.
Shuwada. Yeah, shuwanach, shukat, like those might be related to the shu. Yeah.
Lagoon in that Hates story, she says hot, shoot and and fish, they would go in search of it, is how Kayashi translated that. Eh?
Wow. Yeah, and so we're going to see these other ends of things and how it pops up and how it's kind of interacting. And then, so that brings us back to here, translators, because the other thing is you have yan, shu, ka. So shuka seems to be out on the end of it, right? If you sort of look at the pieces, it seems like what those pieces are. Shukat without anything means sort of like ahead of it or before it. But in this case, a shoot day.
After they were done digging things up in the garden, they moved.
Where'd they go? I don't really know. Tell me where they go and I'll type. This is what I do.
Is it camp?
That's what I would say. But again, I was like, that's my best guess. But this was the point where I turned to George and Marge. I'm like, okay, so they went to where? And then they would throw me a line. But I would say camp just because you have yan shukad day, so maybe a shoot day. A shoot day. But there might be another thing too where we come back and sort of take a look and see. Right. So maybe we'll do a couple more. We'll see. When he comes back. Right. So again, I would probably say once I heard that, and even if I was stuck, sometimes I get stuck and I'll say, okay, they went somewhere. But then when we come back to this, he says, oh, so this is back to like working on the foods, I guess. But, you know, and again, like the English, you're going to make some decisions in the English because they're going to say work on the food because they just mentioned the stuff out of the garden. So that's what we're talking about. And it's probably potatoes. Maybe some rutabaga.
Could you do something like put food in parentheses there?
Yeah.
Work on it, parentheses, like food, you know?
Right. Okay. And a lot of this work, as you folks take, you become the ones who are doing this work, like you have to decide, like, who am I translating for? And for me, I'm usually translating for the learning community. Just sort of like, I want people to know what this is, but, and then this is the case where like putting something in parentheses makes a lot of sense. So that if someone starts to use that verb, you know, they might think, oh, this might have something to do with food then. So, okay. It's 1 minute down. So let's maybe come back to that next week. We'll give you folks a little more time to keep going. Say goodness cheesh. Oops. Kaxwaan Éesh. He was so good to work with. So good. And Shikshani, March Dudson. Such good stuff that they share. And so a number of times I would just set up the camera and he would just tell a story. Say, I want to tell this story. I want to tell that story. And then we did a series that were just about his whole life, you know, which I haven't even rendered yet. So I should pretty soon. That's going to be a bigger project. Incredible stuff. He was in Cake and the army came and they said, drafted, gotta go. So they brought him to Ketchikan and he was gonna get on this plane and go to boot camp. He was probably 18, 19 years old. His family came over from Cake and they talked to the army folks. They said, hey, you know, we're working on our foods. Can we have him just for another week? He's got to work with us. We need help. And they said, fine. So he went home. That plane he was supposed to go on crashed. Everybody died. It was wild. He told me all kinds of stories like that. So, okay. So moving from the big full language back to some of the little parts. I think we'll go back to some of these parts.
Oh, nay. Was there a number on that where you stopped on the recording?
That one we were just working on?
Yes.
I think we got to just after the 1 minute mark.
Okay, good.
So next week we'll work on the 1 to 2 minutes. Go a minute a week. Hey, all right.
Renee, just a quick question.
Ah.
If we're transcribing inland on Elan, we would show the Teslan O as underline all.
Yeah, so there's not everybody agrees with me on that, but that's what I would recommend. So let's take a look at some of these. These are just maybe these will just be fun for a little while. So this is a project that Shkuyet is working on to sort of get this like 100 sentences or so that folks can work on. And I thought it was really fun because it shows us some things. Hold on, let me respond. I don't think he is. Du ish ewe tsakoidi utla takdin tan. And so as far as making like, and there's a bit of a question here, like So let me find one of these phrases that has it. So here's one right here. Folks from Kaxwaan and Tlein, it is clear that they are saying oh and oh, right? There's a long and a short version. And I know this because Koch mentions he hears Yana Koch. And as we sort of did some work, Shkuyesh and I, we figured out if there's an underlined, if there's one of these guttural sounds on either side of the U vowel, it'll push it to this O sound. That's just what it seems to be the pattern. There are some things like hado where it's just there, but it seems to be pretty predictable in terms of you'd have kook, so that would become koke. But then how would we write? And we're sort of going back and forth. Like one option, like let's talk this thing out. So one option is you could just make that an O, and a kocho. Okay, so you could do that. However, what would you do for this? So then there was a suggestion that you write that. So you write a U. But then as I looked, I said, well, I wouldn't think of that because I wanted to have the same association, like this exact same vowel. You just have a variant over there. I didn't know why the village tok was funny to people in Tlein until I heard them say itok. I was like, oh, that's why it's funny, because it's a butt. So let me get the lights on. For the time being, if you have the Language Geek keyboard, you could do it with that extra step. If you don't, I don't think it's very easy to do. However, let me share with the whole screen. We'll see what happens. I'll share the whole desktop. So there is this program called Popcar, Popchar. It's one you do have to pay for, but I think once you pay for it once, I think you've got it forever, which includes all the updates and everything. I think it's like $30, $40. So what happens, you end up with this little letter P up in the top left of your keyboard, of your screen. And when you click that, this little window pops up. And from this window, you can put combining macron below. That's the one you're going to use. And it keeps the things you use the most up here. So some other handy things are all these little numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, that are superscripts. So if you copy and paste it, it's not going to look like, because if you have underline X, A, and a full number 1, it sure looks like an L to me sometimes. So now that the little number 1 should stay small. This one here, I don't know what it's called. I'm not going to say it, but this is how you write the letter A with the X with the mark through it to say vowel deletion. You go from ausiku to kesh a w sa ku, which becomes kesh awasku. The letter A gets deleted in the classifier. And then there's a number of other things. So you could use, oh, here's the little X for the invariable stem variation. But so you could type the letter O and then type this right after, but you would need this Popcar thing in order to do it. Or you copy and paste it from somewhere. So for the time being, there's not a real easy answer. Some people don't agree with me that it's something that's certainly part and that's triggered by, some people think it's just something that some people do randomly. I don't know what they think, but that's what I would do. So then here's the O, and when I hit that, then it goes to that. But that's my current recommendation, and Shkuyesh and I talked it. We were in Tlein, and that's when we decided, and I guess we have a little bit of say around here. It's not just other people, but there should be some consensus. So, oh, go ahead.
I just said that underline L sounds like a great idea.
Makes sense to me, because then it shows that it's related to those other underlines, which is all that we're trying to do. Moving back and forth on all this. We're trying to figure out for a long time. Because then once we found out too that there's a short version, then we're like, there's gotta be some way, O to what? O to OU? That makes sense to me.
If people start using it, sooner or later, people will be like, oh, what the heck? We'll just add it in there anyway.
Yeah.
I don't know. But
Okay. Someone read sentence number 1. Is that big enough?
Jot ichande chat kalka kaden chat shik jat.
Sheesh. Okay. So just in terms of like, there's some good stuff that we could pull out of these things. So khat kawaka would be ordered me to do something. And then khat shikijat is so you could instruct me or advise me or show me how to do it or tell me how to do it. So that is one of those purpose verbs. So it's basically, it's a little unusual because you don't usually find second person hortative forms. So you do have to learn how to put that together. But it is a second person hortative with the T on it. It's basically the construction.
Sorry, why do you add the T at the end?
So basically, if you took a hortative and you added the T, it'd be so it could happen. So I came here to do something, and then you're going to have that hortative form. So basically, when you look that up, so it may be so, you would have yen qatit. Because yen qati would be the hortative form. What else could you have? Naqata. Shikhat naqatayit. Shut up so I can sleep. Right. So you could say that. Make sure you're saying it to the right people, or else you get booted out of the house. Booted out of the Zoom meeting, lights will turn off again. So. Okay, ask questions if you got them. We're just gonna go through just for fun, just to look at them. And there's I'll put these up on our class webpage. We also have the other 50 inspirational phrases that we had with the combined class. Maybe we'll do in November. We'll see. We want to read number 2?
Sure. Akin a yamsaka klish ade se in a kalneek ade et une ye.
Sheesh. So achin a yamsaka is so, and we would say ayausaka on the coast. So this in ayausaka would be oh, okay, good. Sheesh. So if you said khat yamsaka, they said it to me. But when you get achin ayamsaka, now they promised it to me. Slight difference, right? So the difference is the object, if there's no n in, so you'd have I told you this thing. Now we're going to do the quotation mark thing. I told you this thing. Khatyi saka, you told me this thing. Achin yisaka, you promised me. Achin ayausaka, they promised me. Kesh ade se. And it's, well, there's a couple different things. Right. It might be missing a part. Okay, here's what I would expect. It seems like, because you would have blank in a kawanik. A kakkanik is also, I might expect that as well. So kesh adesa would be the se part is like masawe yisukuke yohan se.
Voice?
There is a voice, and then there's also this little particle, like when you say wasasiyati, you're saying wasasiyati. It's a little particle, and I'm trying to remember how it translates. It's like perhaps or maybe. It's not a very common thing, but I think when you have something like that, kesh adesa, maybe don't. So kesh ade and kish is just how, or tish is how you'd hear that kleish or hesh when you go to Tlein. So for example, there's a Sitka newspaper that put a picture up of a grizzly bear getting shot, and it was also choking on like some neck, and it was a really terrible picture. So I wrote on their Facebook page, I was like, you guys really shouldn't have this picture up there. I was like, there's nothing we respect more than a bear, and stuff happens, but putting this picture up is really disrespectful. And then somebody told me to knock that BS off. So I said, kesh ade, nana'i. And so how would you translate that? Kesh ade, nana'i. There's 2 sentences. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. So yeah, so no way, go die, right? That's probably like a pretty literal thing. Nana'i is it's used jokingly a lot, but that is also the phrase you would use if it was about to go down, or you need to start the battle. But kesh ade on its own is no way. Like you could just say it. Like if someone says something, promise me you won't tell anybody. Kesh ade, no way. It's gossip time, right? But in this case, you have kesh ade se. And I would say perhaps no way, or I'll have to look at like how these things go together. But when you say kesh ade ka'ina kakkanik, there's no way he's gonna tell anybody. There's no way they would tell anybody, right? So this could be, if you were gonna tell me this secret, and then you're sort of like, wait, I don't know if I should tell you. You got some loose lips. Then if I wanted to assure you, I might say, there's no way I'm gonna tell anybody. I'll check with Shkuyet. I would expect the ka to be there. So when you say kesh ka'in, nobody, right? If you say ka'in, which can also be kun, that's what I would expect. And then akakwanik, just a straight future form of that verb. Ade, and then you have this other phrase, ade atwuneyiya, the way it happened. Okay, getting long, looking at those 3 parts, part 1, part 2, part 3, to smush together to make this nice sentence.
Kune,
Shkuye
told me that Anya Sahash often he takes that sound out of the prospective or future mode, and so it's just the way it was before.
Yeah,
I think you'll see that a bit here in this document.
And there's always a bit of a balancing act with this, with capturing the words of your speakers and the way that they talk. And then sometimes you have a teaching document and you might sort of standardize, but maybe you do and maybe you don't standardize it and say, but just because folks might see it and say, oh, this must be some new verb mode that I don't know. Like, what's the one that Kaxwaan uses for like a first person future? Like it's
Wuka.
Wuka. Yeah, and I was like, right, we're back to, but I do think there are ways to preserve that because we want to remember how they talk because they teach us so much stuff. And we can even do things that they do. My Uncle Johnny, he said shkoon. That's how he said school. And so like someone's reviewing my work, like it's schoon, not shkoon. I was like, well, who you, bro? So, you know, but again, now here I am standardizing stuff, but these are really good thing. And also to remember, there's lots of variants within Lingít. So Gunashish and Gunashish Guyesh and Undasahash and Kaxwaan Éesh for putting this together.
I think Kaxwaan leaves out that W as well often.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then there's others like Shukwa, Shukwanach, and Shukhanach. Sometimes it's there, sometimes it isn't. Okay, 2 sentences in. Let's do something else real quick as we start to kind of wrap up for the day. And I just appreciate you all. You're so good. Ya nisqueen aya ya hayu khatangi hakanahawe yan shkuk kunshish.
Gunashish Shkun, Uncle Johnny. My Aunt Martha Jager Tsao-Ot used to sing to me and she would put that SH in there and someone told me, you can't sing that like that. And I said, my aunt was 94 and she sang to me like that. And they put the SH in on some words and it's just the way, she said, well, she must have had a speech impediment. She talked with her teeth clenched together and you couldn't even see her lips move and she talked inside there. So it was interesting. I'm gonna cheesh for that.
Yeah, I would hear the old people and stu, he was sucking. Okay. So we'll stew all we want. What's that?
That's the same way you say it in Kaxwaan too, the elders taught us. Well, they always say shkoon dake.
Yeah. I mean, it's good to get feedback and it's good to give feedback, but some of the feedback I get, it's like a no in capital letters with like 2 exclamation points. I'm just like, settle down, champ. Okay, sorry. So let's look at a few things here, right? Coming back to these suffixes we're talking about yesterday, or 2 days ago. So we have from, dach and tch. I would almost put this one in parentheses. There's a couple of things that will take this and it'll push the whole thing, like so kach, yach, ah. It might only be those 3. So, but you can have dach, and if it attaches to a vowel, tx, right? The dach will always be short and high. The dach will also always want to attach to the noun. And so that's from or out of or since. Like you could say, I heard shtuch since I was a young boy, right? Day is towards or until. Yidati day, up until now. Yidati dach, from now on. Nach is along or via or through this particular time. The letter T, the T, is arriving at, being at, sometimes moving about. I almost think that's a different one, but I don't know. At the point of something. the w or is at, usually in a phrase without a verb. There's usually not a verb there. So you wouldn't expect like nesh unuk. I would expect nesh yi unuk. Is at, usually residing or resting, or at the time of, ta in the winter, kutan in the summer, on Monday.
Back to the T. When you say at a point, do you mean at a point in time?
Oh, yeah, I think so.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah, like you could say, yeast kuaha. So the fall has arrived. I was just talking to my son the other day. It was so fun because I said, "Kinakati ye no u takte ya kunahain." He says, "It's yeast though, Dad. It's yeast." So I was like, "All right. Do whatever you want." Going back to if you say it and sing it even a little bit, do whatever you want. They wear their jacket on their head, just like the hood part. Then they walk around and complain that's cold. Okay. Sometimes there'll be nothing, usually if it ends with two vowels, right? Like ah. But then there's other cases like ha tu yeyati. People wanted to change that, like I made that song. They kept wanting to say ha tu yeyati. But I was saying, I could hear Kingisi very clearly, and I could hear others would say, yitu yeyati, ha yu khatangi. So. And then the underline X is repeatedly at, in prolonged contact, moving around, keeps coming back to. I think there is a separate suffix to say like being a member of the group, like shukach adich sati. Or there's this interesting thing where you say like kaya kajit au shayech. They made a chair. Kaya kajit au shayech. They made it into a chair or they used it as a chair. So let's take a look at what happens when we put these on ya, he, we, and yu. So these could take all of those suffixes. So you could have yadach or yat from here. I think they were here, it was here, and then it left or whatever. Yade towards here, yanach through right here, and then yat arriving here, yadu is here, yach residing or resting here, yach moving around or keeps coming back here. Okay. So note what happens with these vowels. The tendency with ya is it goes long and high when you put a suffix on it. Right? And this is, there are some rules about short vowels and suffixes. Usually when you put a suffix on a short high vowel, it'll go long and low. But ya is, I think it's interchangeable. Because you hear people say, ya yesh, and you hear them say, ya yesh. So this is one that won't get pushed low. Same with these ones. So he is nearby, right? It's here, but not immediately right here. So you could have ʼéidáx or ʼéidáx, heyday, which is what you hear in all the door opening things. So heyday, shukach, tutang, heinach, through here, hate, arriving here or being here, heydu, it's right here or it's here, heich, heich. See the same thing with we. Weidach, wait, wayday, waynach, wait, waydu, weich, weich, doing these same things, getting pushed long and high. ʼéidáx, ʼéidáx, ʼéidé, ʼéinach, ʼéid, ʻéidú, ʻéuch, ʻéuch. Okay, any questions on those? So there they are. Right?
So
So-
are every one of those also used not just in location, but in time as well?
Yeah, yeah, they work for time. So especially ya and you. The other ones kind of not so much. We just has so much use. It's just used so much. But my findings have been if speakers are really thinking about stuff long time ago, they'll say ayu quite a bit. And if they're thinking of stuff like right now, they'll say aya quite a bit. And same with, you could say you, it was long ago, or it could be a long time from now. And then the ya is more like the immediate. So we can see it also with the question marker gu. So you could say ʼéidáx, from where? ʼéidáx, towards where? ʼéináx, through where? ʼéidáx, or arriving or being at where? ʼéisu, located where? ʼéireachta, resting or residing where? ʼéireachta, moving around where? Yeah. Here's some examples of the gu being used. So someone could say, ʼéidáx away ya gu. Where is y'all's canoe from? ʼchunadacha ya gu. So it could be kichchanaachdacha ya gu, but that dach should be attaching right to that noun. Sh'akwedacha ya gu. Gudesa yani gut. Hundake hiti de yan chagut. Gunachsa akawachu. With yanach akawachu. Gutsa uwakuch. Necht uwakuch. Gusu achkisi. Yadu ikisi. Guchsa yeyeti ish. De shuch yeyeti ach ish. Guchsa shkanel tsech. Yuch shkanel tsech. So whatever the question marker is, like gut, then you should have necht. Gude, nechte. It's just matching up. But that also is going to determine what these also determine types of motion. So this is na, this is na, this is na, this is zero. It's not used with a verb. And these ones those wouldn't really be motion. Maybe still be na. So the T be the only one that pushes it to a zero. So you'd say nechtach ugud, nechte ugud, nech yinach ugud, necht ugut. Okay. Yak Johan. Gunnish. Next week, we'll do the next minute of Kaxwaan Éesh. We'll keep looking at some more of these suffix things. And then the goal is so that we're not just listening, as I'm going to ask you folks for, come up with a sentence using this thing. Come up with a sentence using that thing. Just so we could just sort of see it in motion. And then, yeah, we'll try and figure out some ways too for communicating the study groups and stuff. I know we've talked about base camp. That doesn't seem to get a lot of traffic these days, but maybe we'll try and breathe some life into it or see if there's something else that we want to try.
I think, oh, good.
What?
I sent an email to folks with the Zoom link for this Saturday night at 7 p.m. Tlein has graciously offered to host and keep the fire going. So good tish.
And I'll stay on a minute if anybody wants to see how to get the underlined combining character on a Mac.
And just checking, are we still doing tomorrow at noon too?
Yeah, is tomorrow Thursday?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, clicky. I'll see you tomorrow.
Hey.
Chop, show us that underline.
Okay, I'll share screen. So here's my laptop. I'm gonna have to plug in. I see that. Hang on. So up here is my keyboard. This is the Crippen keyboard, but it doesn't matter for this. So I'm gonna just click on it and go down to show emoji and symbols.
Wow.
So everybody should have that. So I looked around in Latin, I think. And let's try. Okay, so this is punctuation. Okay, so here's some different punctuation, and I just found something that looked like an underline, right? So click on that, low underline, but it's not a combining character, right? So let's try another one. I did find it, but I didn't pay attention to where I found it. So
It's one of them.
yeah, it is. And I put it in favorites. So, oh, but I don't know how to get back to it. So let's see. Combining diacritical marks. So Unicode over here in the left-hand column, and then combining diacritical marks. And here we have plenty of marks to look at. Let's see. Combining macron below, all right. And then I can put it into my favorites up here.
Oh, yeah.
And here it is. So in my click that. It'll put it underneath anything, I guess. So let me make an O and then double click on that combining underline. So that was a lot of different steps. Anybody want me to go back through it? Once you get it in your favorites,
It's just there. Huh?
find favorite. Okay. Who has a question?
Mine doesn't show character viewer though. It just shows all my little happy faces.
Yeah, mine's doing the same thing. I don't see like.
Oh,
It's like a little button on the top right.
The top right, click that thing. Oh, yeah, goed laat. That.
I didn't see a Unicode in mine though.
I think that's,
There is, so if, okay, okay. So let me see if I can get back. So when I open this, I'll show you folks what this looked like for me. Is this is what it looked like. And then when I click this little box here, it transformed.
right.
And then I was digging around, and this thing is called a macron. And what's funny is when I first searched for it, I was like, how about MACR? I was like, whatever thing. But then if you go down here, combining macron below, that's the character you want to use. There's another one called combining low line that I used to use, and I used to advise people to use. Bad advice is, but the problem with the combining low line is if you had an underline G and or if you had an underline K and underline X, the underlines would run together. With the macron, they stay separate. It's a little bit shorter than the actual character itself. But this is also how you would put the underline onto the character itself. So the G wouldn't be a formatted underline G. Goodness geez for finding that.
And that's where I found a good verb root symbol. I just used a square root from the math section.
Okay. Goodness geez. Oh. Got to it, let's see. Yeah. If you want to come up with anything, I guess some folks have signed off already, so. But if you want to come up with any sentences for Monday, any suggested topics? We've done traveling, we've done food.
Maybe pets.
Oh, Halloween.
Halloween. How
What-
about, I heard pets, stories about pets maybe?
mm,
Or,
Did we do our favorite Lingít Glossika?
our favorite ʼéidáx, is that what you said?
Yeah, Lingít Glossika. Our food, our traditional foods.
Okay, traditional foods.
mhm,
Okay,
mm, mhm.
tea. Goodness
Okay.
cheese.
And maybe we can see the video, Kusine.
Goodness cheese.
Okay.
Goodness cheese.
Cheers.
Hey, Lance, got a moment?
Sheesh.
I got a document I want you to see if you have a moment.